And welcome to episode 5, Wilds of Eldraine, Broken Oath, by K Arsenault Rivera. August 13th, 2023, posted on magic.wizards.com. Now, if my phone will let me look, yes, on Magic Stories. Okay. Get on normals and let everyone come through the door, as we say. Go ahead and guys, if you're here. And we will get going in about a minute. Before that, not sponsored, but ready. Bang it. This is the citrus twist. Twist, twist, twist. Bang. And welcome back, Teals, for episode 5. All right. Get you into position. You're looking good. You're looking good. All right, here we go. Wilds of Eldraine, episode 5, Broken Oaths. Chowd Cowan to the castle ruins comes. Though his and Ruby's deeds have merited them the recent gifts of ponies, he does not feel heroic astride his new steed. Far from it, as he survives the once proud hills and valleys around Castle Ardenvale, all he feels is resignation. Are you ready? He asked Ruby. She atop her pony, kitted in her namesake color, her cloak bellowing out over its flank. There is a good reason for such showmanship. A blade of eternal ice hides beneath the fabric. Hildathon Ruby's request for a sword as big as she is. Well, as big as she was. Endearing rather than ridiculous. With the last bit of the crown's magic, she granted Ruby the boon, and Ruby was only too happy, in most cases, to brag about it. She is not bragging about it now. Who could, seeing the gloom upon Kellen's face? Yeah, I am. But if you need more time to talk about it, I don't, Kellen says. We're going to do the right thing. And that's that. Nari and enemy challenged them along the Ardenvale's gate. An eerie quiet rolls across the plains. Kellens felt this before in the lead up to a storm, the livestock all retreating hours before the people knew why. When they see the battered state of the doors, before them it is a sensible thing, a reasonable one. The preferable storm that will consume them has torn the door from its hinges. The rotted, corrupted heart of curse has eaten away at the wood. The dreamers that lurk behind it are the nightmares that plagued Kellen during their journey here. This is not a place of succor or rest, nor a place of glory. It is a place where wounds fester. Kellen doesn't want to enter it, but he has given his word that he will. And something in his blood has affixed itself to the oath like enamel to a knight's shield. We can go through the sleeping guards, he says. We'll just be hunting them. Ruby raises a brow. Got a better idea? Kellen reaches in his cloak. In his hand held aloft, the second bottle of fructification, try and lint them. Ruby grins. You know I like the way you think, she says. But this time you ought to hold on to me. Oh, it reminds Kellen of better times. All right. Just bring us down easy. No promises, Ruby answers. Kellen lashes the horse to a post with 2 stacks of feed. They'll be set for the rest of the day. Hopefully, he and Ruby won't need any more time than that. After giving the horses a quick goodbye, he meets Ruby at the base of the castle walls. There They're in the air, and seconds later, Ruby isn't the one to wait around for a cue. Her landing skills are better than Kellen's, landing on her powerful amphibian legs only moments before she starts to revert to human shape. Ariat might not have been expecting anyone to bypass the castle gates, but there are no sleepers here standing guard, no closed eyes to watch them. Okay. Maybe Troyon wasn't so bad, Ruby, she says. She keeps her voice as hushed as their footsteps. Where to? Kellen's brows meet. He thinks, if I were a witch, I'd want to have the throne room to myself. Hilda said Ariat loved attention, Ruby says, with a nod. Probably got a whole bunch of people in there feeding her grapes and stuff. Kellen tilts her head at her, but opens the first door and he sees all the same. Why grapes? I don't know. It's always grapes, though, Ruby says. Ahead of them, a yawning hallway, dark and dreary, festooned with faded and defaced portraits. The stone floors and walls leave the air cooler within, though there are plenty of torches in their holders. Not one is lit. The only light granted them is which filters in through the door, and the light of cursing along the floor. Together the two heroes follow the winding cords of violet through the halls of the Castle Ardenvale, past empty rooms, ransacked war rooms, and raided armors their skulk. So open their ears that the passing squeaks of mouses are as loud as a dragon's dying cry. It is thus no wonder that they hear the woman's footsteps before they see her. Soft they are, but not soft enough. The creak of her leather boots and the scuff of her sole against the stone, even her bellow-bored sigh gives her way. Kellen and Ruby press themselves on the other side of the door. Ruby is the first to peek, blade held at her side. When she gestures for them to do the same, it is with a stunned look. He understands why. Standing before a lectern and surrounded by swirls of cursed clouds is a woman known even in Oranshire. Rowan Kenrith, the daughter of the High King herself, has come to the Castle Ardenvale. Kellen cannot stop himself from smiling. She must have figured out the same as they did. He can't believe their luck. Well, it wasn't him talking, sorry. The glad tidings overwhelm him's good sense. Kellen dashes into the room, and Ruby follows, her sword hanging toy-like at her side. Rowan, he calls. Then his cheeks reddening with embarrassment. When she looks up, he sputters, Lady Kenrith, be careful with the curse. Who are you? What are you doing here? She answers. Strange. Rowan's frowning. We came to defeat the witch, the same as you, Ruby says. Is there some kind of spell keeping you in this place? Kellen hadn't thought of that. Good thing Ruby came along. She's always thinking on her feet. There must be something binding Rowan in this place. The curse, maybe? That's the way it's swirling around her. That must be it. We can find some way to break the spell, Kellen offers. There are no cauldrons here. No unmelting ice, no seagulls you can spot. Only books, wands, loose pages, and inkwells. He scans these for answers. Me and Ruby have gotten really good at that. We're heroes, Ruby adds. Okay. Hopefully. But Rowan Kenrith neither laughs nor smiles, nor even thanks them for their assistance. She lays her hands on either side of the lectern, sparks crackling along her fingers. I think the two of you should leave, she says, her voice cool and level. Ha! You could probably handle it on your own, but I need to be with you at least. Kellen says, I promise I'd help in the curse. You can't do that from outside, Rowan says. It'd be best if you weren't here. You can do that from outside. It's best if you weren't here. Something in her voice raises Kellen's hackles. His tongue sticks to the roof of his mouth, and he looks once more at the page before him. In red-brown ink, jagged handwriting spells the truth. Attempt 23. Haven't been able to put anyone to sleep yet, except the old-fashioned way. He has no time to process what he just read. For when he looks up at Rowan, she sparkling light. Kellen's vision goes white. Oof. Oof. It's part one. Let's see. We'll go ahead and bang it up real quick here. Let's do it. Kellen, wake up. Don't make me get the prison water. I swear I will. What? Before he can snort out what's going on, he's hit in the face with something very, very cold. Ruby is standing before him with an empty bucket at her feet. Are you back? She says. Kellen clears his throat. The rope keeping his hands together had been severed already, likely the work of Ruby's frosty sword. But wait, where are we? How'd you get your sword back? Take a look around, hero. Sir Rowan knocked us both out. She was trying to work some kind of dream magic on you when I woke up, but then Kellen's eyes land on sleeping guards face down on the floor. Clattering metal and creaking wood echo down the stone stairs in their small cell. The cavalry arrived. She went off to deal with it, so I got my sword and you woke up. Kellen stands. He hefts the chains overhead and drops them on the ground, all save the shortest, only long enough to wrap around his palm. She really turned on us? She thought she was helping you, Ruby says, frowning. Kept saying that while she was working, that if she got the spell right, you'd be thanking her for what she was doing. Yes, well, that wasn't a very good dream, Kellen says. He lets out a breath. She's up there. I think the witch is too, Ruby says. Someone shouted Rowan's name, and it sounded ominous. Then let's get up there, he says. Who has a short part 3 coming up. In her hearts of hearts, Rowan Kenrith knew this dream could not last. Just as no moment of training prepared her to save her family, no amount of wishful thinking could extend this respite into eternity. Her time with Ariette, studying the magic that would save Eldraine, had always been fated to end, but she hoped she'd have longer than a few weeks. As her brother's knights burst through the gates, sparks crackle along Rowan's forearm. Ariette seated upon her throne, strains to control the dozen of sleepers among the ruins. Violent strands flying from her hands to warriors' limbs. Rowan struggles just to keep the children asleep and weave a dream for them. Ariette is doing it for a whole army. Oh shit. The last thing she needs is distraction, but what she can use is help. Ashiok had left the realm to attend to business elsewhere. Rowan is the only person Ariette has left, at least until Ashiok returns. A phalanx of knights breach the doors. To counter them, Ariette fields her dreamers, positioned in 2 ranks before the throne. Ariette might be better when it comes to dream magic, but Rowan has taken enough tactics lessons to know this is going to end badly. 2 ranks won't be enough to counter a phalanx of that size. King of Eldraine, stand down, shouts a woman in the van. Rowan narrows his eyes. The voice is familiar. Is that a wooden arm? Ah, the jet of fire over the heads of the sleepers confirms her suspicion. Omidane. Of course, someone that foolish would think shooting fire at innocent sleepers is a good idea. She was careless at the mountain, and she's careless here. Rowan focuses on the sparks in her blood, lets them grow, lets them build. All this energy she unleashes in a fearsome bolt aimed at Imodane's feet. Stone shatters, smoke rises from newly made craters in the castle's flooring. There is no high king in Eldraine, she booms. Turn tail and return to the pretender, Amadane, or I'll dash you across the rocks. You? Says Amadane. What are you doing here? Ah, Rowan, says Ariette from the throne. Will you keep the vermin away from me, child? They won't get in our way, Rowan promises as she steps to the raised eyes. She spots her brother and knows that one way or another, all of this is going to end today. He rides atop his white horse behind the vanguard, his sword drawn. Rhyme coats his pauldrons, his vambraces. Despite riding into battle, he hasn't the sense to don a helmet. Seeing him, seeing him is seeing all the parts she least like of herself externalized into someone else. Worse still, when he narrows his eyes, when he calls, his voice full of disbelief and ache. Rowan, what are you doing? There is a jump in her throat, a pain unspeakable when her brother looks at her like this, like he's afraid of her, like he wants her to be something other than she is, to wake up one day and return to the being the woman he knew before. When will he realize the Rowan he knew is dead? I'm learning how to save the realm, she says. Listen to yourself, working with witches, cursing the realm. This isn't you, he says. Is this what he thinks a high king should be? A man who is on the verge of tears atop his war horse? Please come home. She wants him to understand. She wants so badly for him to understand that she's never going to be all right again. But he won't. She's charging them before she knows what else to do. Her sword beats back shields and snaps lances. In the thick of the melee, her blood sings. Her surrounded by steel's blooming petals, she is free from any thought, save that which animates her limbs. Parry, riposte, dodge, blast. When she reaches her brother, there is already a blood on her armor. She levels her sword at him, he on his horse, and dares him to dismount. Home is gone, Will. Cool eyes study her. When his feet finally touch the ground, his shoulders are doubled with weight of his worries. He draws no weapon. No, it doesn't. No, it isn't. Hazel and Eric need us. He's talking to her the way he talked to Amadane, his own sister. She can't stand another second of it. Our parents are dead. The realm is shattered. You're acting like talking about it will help. It won't. Talking is never going to help. Josh to his chest will convince him to raise his sword. Even Will cannot compete with such a compelling argument. He raises his own blade to parry than he is. She's always been stronger. Under a relentless barrage of blows, he's beaten back, step by step, his warriors parting to let him pass, whether because he'd given an order or because they fear her. The other knights do little to stop Rowan. The only thing that does stop her is a bolt of ice. Will manages it between blows. She doesn't realize her feet are frozen to the floor until she tries to move them once more. Rowan catches her breath as the battle rages around them. Knights against dreamers, friends against friends. Her brother fights back tears. Rowan, I'm sorry, he says. I didn't help you when you needed. It isn't what she was expecting from him. There is a sharp feeling in the corner of her eyes, a pain in her chest. An arrow flies over her head, landing in a dreamer behind her. She cannot look at Will for too long, or she's not going to be able to speak. She glances over her shoulder toward Ariette. But it isn't just Ariette. But it isn't just Ariette she sees. Rowan's heart sinks. The children must have gotten loose. Worse than that, they're attacking the throne. The girl in red is swinging a sword twice her size at Ariette. The boy fights with a whip of golden vine. Ariette, hold on. I'm getting a little emotional here. Fuck. Okay. Ariette may be a powerful witch, but she's no fighter. She can't deal with the children and animate the dreamers at the same time. Rowan looks to Will again. He's frowning now. You want to save her? She's our aunt. This magic will always was always in our blood, Will, Rowan says. She's surprised at how young she sounds. We cannot use it to save Eldraine. No one has to suffer anymore. No one has to die. We can keep them safe. For a moment, she mistakes the hurt in his expression for sympathy. It is the longest moment of her life. A length of hope tied around her neck. A box kicked out from under her. Damn. That's some very good writing there, Kay. I don't know you anymore, he says. Sparks. Oh, that's a word I don't know. Coalesce? Sparks coalesce at her fingertips.
Wait, Will doesn't know Rowan anymore?
I don't know you anymore, he says.
Will said that?
Yeah. Sparks coalesce at her fingertips. Rowan blasts the vanguard again, creating another rend across the floor, another wave of anger, another wave of frustration, another wave of hurt. Over and over, she fires her faithless former friends, all these people who knew how badly she was hurting, left her rot. All these people saw her bleeding and rubbed salt in the wound, let them know her power. Only when the dust of her rage settles does Rowan let out a breath, and there she expects to see them laid low. She sees a cocoon of ice, pitted, cracked, and scarred, and it yet stands in the face of her onslaught. Will dismisses it with a wave of his hand. This isn't going to work, he says. You don't know that, Rowan answers, winded and desperate. She cannot hold herself back from charging at him. Her sword arm will succeed where her magic failed, but sure of it, Will, Will could never match her on the field. She slashes at him, only for a familiar hardwood hand to catch her blade. Emma, do you, girl? Imogen growls. The weapon hasn't seemed to stop her. She punches wooden fists into her fleshy palm. He's going to be the one to reunite the realm. Even I can see that now. Don't be certain. Ice against the nape of her neck, smoke in her lungs, a haze that threatens to carry her to somewhere beautiful and far. Veils of black Kalesk into Ashiok's elegant form before the gathered army. Oh no, Ashiok's here. Rowan can't help but smirk. Ariat might have had trouble controlling so many at once, but the Ashiok, it's second nature. The gathered dreamers attack with new grace, swaying out their way of incoming blows and dealing with their own with vicious precision. Will isn't the only Will isn't the only one with friends, when answers Imoldane. They can't easily fight this off. Ashiok at the center is surrounded on all sides by their dreamers, and their dreamers are all too happy to defend. The phalanx must break if they're to attack. Imoldane sends a haymaker Rowan's way. She doesn't bother to dodge. Her nose cracks. The world around spins. Copper floods her mouth. Worth it if it gets her closer? Because there is something Rowan understands. Something they don't. The gathered knights cannot win against Ashiok. All she has to do is hold out long enough for Ariat to send them all to sleep. Rowan drives the pommel of her sword into Imodane's face. A moment of concentration is enough to channel sparks through the knight's armor. She howls, spitting off the fight to try to tear off her plate mail, but she isn't the only enemy Rowan faces. A dozen knights at least have gathered to defend her brother while the others hold off the dreamers. 13 to 1. Rowan likes these odds. All these people are here because they believe the same thing our parents believed in, a united Eldraine. You can't just make people whatever they want, Will says. You're only saying that because you've always been too weak to do it, Rowan answers. Would diplomacy have stopped Oko, the Auric? Three of Will's guards collapse around him, their bodies joining the pile of the slumbering. An incoming slash from one of their others gives her enough chance. Rowan lunges into the blow, turns aside at last second with a distance close she can crack her pummel on the knight's temple. Blood coats her knuckles as her opponents crumble. Halfway there. In the distance, she spots a flash of gold among Ashiok's smoke. The boy from earlier, swinging some kind of gold chain. Small as he is, he's managed to slip between the ranks. A lot of good that'll do. He's one boy against Ashiok. What can he possibly do? The golden arches of his mighty makeshift whip might be flashy, but they won't save him. Talking wouldn't help him either. She turns her attention back to Will. If you talk to the Phyrexians, Will? If you talk to the Phyrexians, Will, do you think our parents would be alive right now? She launches herself at Will once more. For years they had sparred. For years they had known each other's minds. She knows every trick he has, but he too knows hers. And with his back to the wall, he's desperate, chilling the air around her, conjuring shields at the last second, icing the ground to throw off her balance. Does power matter that much to you? Power is the only thing that matters, Rowan says. She clips his elbow with a slash. He drops his sword. A lance comes her way, but one of the dreamers throws himself into the path. Their counterstrike, a hammer to the knee, sees their killer fall too. Do you see that now? Bring as many people as you want, Will. It won't matter. Look around. Your army's fallen asleep. Will, the follower he is, does as he's told. Rowan watches him as he realizes there's no escaping them. He lets out one last hopeless bolt of ice. One G over. But but it's a smile. What was the line? Don't be certain? It's the oldest trick in the book, yet she falls for it. Turning to look behind her, the bolt has struck its truest target, Ashiok's chest. The boy wasn't trying to beat Ashiok at all. Rowan sees that now. He only ever meant to lash him into a place long enough for Will to land a strike. A potent one, too. Rowan's rarely seen Will put so much of himself into a bolt. Ashiok lets out a howl of pain as the ice spreads through their body. Smoke swallows them, and then they are gone. They still had their spark, realizes when suddenly, with a lurching sensation. The smoke clears just in time to see the girl press his blade to Ariat's throat. Rowan leaps to her throat. In the moments of distress, Ariat remains calm and collected across the ruins of the throne room. Her eyes meet Rowan's. A single thread of the curse, hardly enough to be unnoticed, links them. Go from this palace, Ariat says to her. When the time is right, we will meet again. Rowan steps towards her. But I can't lose anyone else. You aren't losing anyone. They won't kill me, darling. They're too soft. We bid our time. The thread snaps. In the recesses of her mind, she's alone, watching one more as someone she cares about is held at sword point. If she's not heed Ariat's advice, then her brother will surely take her in. He will imprison her, and there will be an endless parade of healers and tender heart fools to speak with her, to try to understand her. Meanwhile, Eldraine will remain splintered. For though Will has gathered an army of many colors here, he has not gathered them all. And if she finally gives in, if she pretends to be all right, he will remain High King, and she will always be the woman who rebelled. Worse, she will always be the woman he graciously forgave. No, there is no going back now, no returning home. She has enough left for one more blast. Rowan Kenrith takes a breath. As she had on Strixhaven, she lets her power crackle through her. Light surges. Rowan! Will shouts. He reaches for her tube, but he's still afraid of her, and that's the problem. Difficult to control her power when there's this much of it. Still, she has to try. Wrenching her brow, gritting her teeth, she twists the energy as it leaves her. Instead of aiming outward, she aims it downward. A booming louder than the fall of a giant, Rowan's in the air. From up there, she can see the threads of the curse coming together, a spider web centered around the castle. What was it? Royce had said to her, if you don't make time to rest, damn. If you don't make time to rest, it will come to you when you least expect it. It is the same for Eldraine. Her many blows have they weathered by now. How many shattered dreams? They've all been strong again. If they're to be unified, they need to forge those dreams to rest, as does Rowan. One day she'll bring the blessed drain. Afterward, there's much for Kellen to sort through. High King Kenrith takes him and Ruby aside, and he tells them there's never met children braver than they are, and they are invited to come to the palace whenever they like, and they will be welcome like members of the family. But his eyes are storm clouds when he says all this. He cannot stop looking at the horizon. Kellen thinks he's looking for Rowan. If it were him, if it were his sister, who had done all that? That's what Kellen would do. So he doesn't blame King Kenrith for being a little distant. He must be hurting. Ruby takes him up on the offer, on the condition she can bring her brother. The king smiles, cracks. He agrees. He would love to have her and her brother visit with both of them. As they make their plans, Kellen slips away. There's something else he has to do. His friend deserves all the awards she can get. Facing down a witch with her sword of ice, the sort of thing saying well in the story. Edgewall will be out of red cloaks ere long. Let her revel. What he has to do will only lead her away from the glory she deserves. Outside the castle, Ardenvale, he steps into the Fey world. Oh boy. A, sleep, a sleepy farm outside a sleepy village. A place that knows struggle only against the weather and soil. Her among the paddocks and pastures of Oranshire, there are no talk of heroes. The quiet sits strangely in Kellen's ears as he walks the beaten path to his family farm. He's never been so grateful. For distant bleats, wood chopping axes, everything he's been through, silence fits him like a shrunken coat. The whole place does. When he walks by the Cutter boys, they glare at him just the same. The terrible thing is that the part of him still fears them, even when he knows he shouldn't. But he knows he's strong enough now. He holds himself taller. He walks by them, and when they do nothing to harm him, he lets out a breath. Hex is the first of his family to greet him, bounding across the rows of neatly planted turnips he grows, dripping trail of drool, yowling his familiar yowl. When Hex licks his cheeks, Kellen lets out a small sigh of relief. No matter where he's been, what he's discovered about himself, Hex still knows who he is. Kellen hefts the dog over his shoulder as he makes his way up the hill. Hex won't stop barking, of course. So it isn't long before his family hears something's going on. Ronald emerges from around the farmhouse, an axe slung across his shoulder. He drops it upon Spot and Kellen. Honey, honey, he's home, our boy, he's home, he shouts. Ronald runs to him, and Kellen is so wrapped in his stepfather's arms that he doesn't even notice his mother's arrival until she embraces them both, turning about on the fields, the gentle bleating of sheep in his ears and the faint taste of earth on his tongue, his mother's voice and his stepfather's strong grip. Yes, after all that, he's finally home. They welcome him in, insist on it. Happily, tears stream down his mother's face. She presents him with a coat she's made for him. How long has she been spinning thread for this? How could she possibly finish it in time he was away? For every thread is vibrant and beautiful, from the deepest azures to the brightest yellows. Where gold is called, for he is shocked to find thread of gold itself. Colors and material alone would beggar the village, but the details would beggar even a city like Edgewall. Embroidery throughout are elks frolicking among the elms and birches surrounding Oranshire. Along the cuffs are primroses in bloom. Below one pocket a girl sits before a pond clearwater, her reflection staring back at her. And the lining, here he sees the girl again, following a man whose skin is streaked with blue. How does she know the story? What? Kellyan's jaws slack. He throws his arm around his mother again. This is so beautiful, Mom, but I can't accept it. I can't wear this outside. It might get ruined. She laughs, smoothing his hair away from his face. That's thoughtful of you to say, Kellen, but I enchanted it. Kellen turns to the coat again. He presses his fingers to the fabric, and the magic is a thing that can be felt like grooves of an instrument. Really? Well, your mother didn't spend 5 years as a witch, as a witch's apprentice for nothing. She says, Ronald, will you make us some tea? Of course. But first, I have to get it from the Browns. I heard Gretchen just got this. He's already thrown on his own coat, far less fanciful made, heading out the door. When he closes it behind him, Kellen raises his brow at his mother. Something's up. You've gotten clever, haven't you? His mother says. She looks over to the coat. Kellen takes a seat across from her at the dinner table. He doesn't feel much more clever, but he thinks he has an idea what's going on. Still, he wants her to be comfortable. What do you want to tell me? About your father and I, she says. Your birth father. I'm sure the Lord told you that they know of him, but I thought you could get to know him as I did. Kellen smiles. His heart's pounding. The Lord didn't tell me anything about him, actually. He didn't. But your quest. I told him I wanted to go home, to hear the story from you, Kellen says. Whenever you thought I was ready. Silence passes as tears well in his mother's eyes. She squeezes his hand and he squeezes hers. And when she is ready, she begins. All right. I met your father during training. I was out in the woods. I can't match up his mom's voice again, sorry. Gathering nightshade when I found a man laying among the blossoms, as if they posed no harm at all. When he invited me to sit with him, I thought he must be joking, but he offered to give me all the nightshade I wanted in exchange for only a conversation. Knowing him for a fae, I made him a promise that was only a conversation, and with that, I spoke with him. I told him he told me his name was Oko, and he told me that it was only newly arrived in Eldraine, that he is not from any realms I'd ever seen. He wanted to know more of this place, and from a pretty girl, it was all the better. A blue streaked man in the coat's lining catches his attention anew. Oko, his father, a man among the nightshade blossoms. His mother sighs with a hint of a dream. It was the first time that anyone had ever said that I was pretty. And I found the idea of realms beyond our own so thrilling. Naturally, I asked him thousands of questions. Graciously, he entertained them with answers, so long as I told him something of Eldraine in exchange. For hours we sat like that, talking among the flowers, until we realized we needed to meet again. Another realm? Did he say what it was called? He did. Though, if I'm honest, the name's long since she escaped me. Since escaped me, his mother says. But he said it was a land where Fae ruled supreme. He found the idea that humans should challenge them very amusing indeed, and laminated that he couldn't confront Lord Talion directly, of course. All young men talked that way, and we're both young then. She leans back in her seat. Over the next few years, I would hear his voice from crows, trees, sometimes even baked goods. I would know it meant to meet him at the Nightshade Glen. He came to me in many forms and told me many things, showed me many things. Without your father's aid, I would have never escaped my mistress. He made me feel so bold and clever. For a while, it was wonderful. The two of us went wherever we liked and did whatever we pleased. I learned more magic from him than I ever did from her. He whispered to me the secrets of the land, and he oh, the trouble started afterwards, though. I had been freed. No one had anything to do with me. Once a witch, always a witch, the saying went. Your father was very upset by this. Says his mother, part of me found it charming that a man shouldn't care so much about me. I wanted to go away with him, but he couldn't take me, and staying here was wearing on him. Eventually, he hurt people who he'd been unkind to me, and I realized that we couldn't continue as we were, no matter how much I loved him. I wasn't meant to be queen, you see. After all that struggle, I wanted peace, but he wanted to raise this place to the ground for offending me. He visited us again 3 years ago. Well, thank you, EA, for scaring the crap out of me. EA. Where was I at? Sorry, people, very much so. He visited again 3 years ago. I heard him calling to me while I was spinning one night. And though the girl within me wanted to go to him, the woman I've become new what I have given up, if I did. I'm far happier here with you. Kellen listened, too intent to interrupt, looking over the coat over and over again. Could you tell me more about him? Kellen says. About what he was like? His mother smiles, is only a little sad. Of course, whatever you'd like to hear. He cannot sleep. There's too much story inside his head. Too many of his father's faces looking back on him. He wonders how many times he's seen him already. Mother said he was fond of changing shapes, so maybe they've already met. But if so, why hasn't his father introduced himself? This is the question that keeps him from rest. Like a horseshoe badly struck, keeps a mount from running. It hurts. The question keeps coming to him. Why haven't you spoken to me? Am I not good enough? He hadn't been brave enough to ask his mother. With little use of sleep, he decides on a walk. Instead, perhaps it'll dislodge the thought from his treacherous head. Perhaps it'll hurt less. Down he goes, wrapping himself in his fine new coat, out in the darkness and wilds. They used to frighten him. He knows better now. The woods will never betray him, so as long as his blood smells of pine. Hex follows him. Unlike other nights, Cowan can think of nothing to say to his old friend. To talk would be to make things worse. If he opens his mouth, he sure will have nothing but questions. And he shouldn't ask questions of an old bloodhound. But Hex has his own ways of helping. Only 5 minutes in, he bolts off. And damn it! And as if he's caught a scent, Cowan can do little save after run after him. His breath mists against the cold of the night. Moonlight plays upon the skin. One second. I don't think I've been banged enough. Sorry. Over the bows, past a copse of yew that prickles his skin. He finally catches up to Hex. His barks once and assuming his pointing posture, aiming straight for a portal. This must be what it is. A swirling series of interlocking triangles, something like a cloudy mirror, standing free beneath the swaying branches of the trees. It looks nothing like the portals in Talian's realm. The other side looks nothing like Eldraine. Kellyan's breath catches in his chest. Tryon told him about other realms. His mother had too, repeating these things his father had told her of them. What if what if this is the way of reaching out? What if this is a test? His father dwelled somewhere on the other than Eldraine. What if he lives there on the other side? Cowan could ask him why it's been so long without them ever meeting. Maybe they'll know of him there. He steps forward. It'll just be a quick look around, and he'll remember the way he came in. It should be fine, right? He isn't really leaving home, and he's just taking a trip somewhere. It's no different than going to the market. He isn't leaving home. He'll be right back. Kellen pats Hex and steps through the portal. It's a cool looking portal. Awake, all is not yet lost. I have returned for you. The voice is cool, familiar. Ariette wonders why it took this this long before she heard it once more. She opens her eyes. The jail cell stares back at her, but so too does Ashiok. Smoke bellows from their evanescent shrouds, despite the lack of wind in the room. What took so long? She asked, her chains rattling when she stands. If the guards outside heard, they'd say nothing, nor even stir. No doubt they were dreaming of something far more pleasant than guarding her. Preparations needed to be made, Ashiok answers. Where's Rowan? She asks. Waiting outside. Ashiok's lips purse. She's not yet ready what must be done. Ariette frowns. If you give her a chance to learn, I'm sure. Opportunity calls us in a new direction. One far from here, you will learn much. Educator. When you have a host of servants to tend your new queendom. Well, that certainly soothes matters. Rowan would be all right on her own for a while, and if Ariette secured new land for them, all the better. She holds up her chained hands. Ashiok hands hover over the shackles. You will be far from here, Ariat. Very far. Far from a jail cell, darling? That's a good thing, she says. They do not laugh. They never answer. Oh, they do not laugh. They never laugh. Darkness falls on the hill. Shackles fall to the stone on the ground. In the morning, when they search the cell, she will be gone. Episode 5 Wilds of Eldraine, Broken Oaths. Boy, a lot happened. There's got to be more. I mean, they're bringing out another set of it soon, so. Good job, everybody. Thank you all for watching. I'm not even typing. Sorry. I was emotional. Sorry if I got a little emotional, a little flustered at the end. Ew, for the views. Go ahead if you want to leave any comments on what I should read next. Definitely, if there's more of this coming out, we're going to continue. Just let me know. But yeah, why don't y'all stay groovy and have a great day. Oh.